Hello, I am Javier and I'm here to teach you Retribution Paladin in Season 2, 11.1 of The War Within. So, this is going to be a beginner-friendly guide and it will be for Mythic Plus and also raiding. Let's jump straight in and start off with the stat priority. Strength, of course, is our main stat and you want to get as much of it. By getting that, you will just be looking at getting a higher and higher eye level of gear. After that, we want as much mastery as we can get, which basically increases our holy damage the more we have. We do have a spell called Judgment, and that is going to increase the chance to blast a target with the light, dealing holy damage with more and more mastery. After that, pardon me, you want to get Critical Strike. After that, it's going to be Haste, which is going to speed everything up. And then it's going to be Versatility, which increases damage and healing done, but reduces how much damage you take. We are going to be looking at the talents, and we are going to be looking at sort of like utilities and things like that you have available to you. But we're going to go through that sort of last and actually learn the spells we have and why we're using them before we get to that point. So we are going with Templar. This is the single target talent tree here. The talent trees are both in the description. If you would like my UI, by the way, this is all available on my Patreon. It's made by Elv UI, and I've got Voodoo profiles and Details profiles, etc. I'm just going to turn on some action bars to show you the spells and how we're going to be using them. So top priority is on the left, bottom or lowest priority is on the right. This is the single target rotation from left to right, and I'm changing out these two spells for AoE. Single target, AoE, single target, AoE. The rest of the rotation actually stays the same. One thing to note with Holy Paladin, we do have mana, but as a DPS, you don't really need to worry about your mana. So I'm going to use this spell here quickly, which is Wake of Ashes. And if you notice on my weak aura here, I have one bar here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I use Wake of Ashes, can you see I've now got 5 out of 5? This is your holy power. So that's the main resource we're actually using, generating and spending as a Retribution Paladin. And we have some spells that generate it and some spells that are going to spend it. Now remember I just said that I'm using this one in single target and this one in AoE or multiple target. Generally looking more so it's going to be, this is your raiding one and this is your Mythic Plus one. Unless of course in raiding you are dealing with a lot of targets at once. This is going to be your holy power spender. So in single target, it's Final Verdict. Unleashes powerful weapon strike that deals damage. It has a chance to reset the cooldown on Hammer of Wrath and make it usable on any target regardless of their health. TLDR, when we're maxed out on our holy power here, 5, you want to use your Final Verdict to spend it. It does have a chance to make this spell down here, Hammer of Wrath, usable whenever the hell you like. Usually you can only use it on enemies with less than 20% health. Don't worry if it's already starting to sound overwhelming or confusing. I'm going to go over this a few times and really hammer it in so that you learn how to play Retribution Paladin. I do all classes on my channel every season, by the way. So now that we've learned the kind of basics of how Ret Pally works, I'm going to go into my Devotion Aura here, which is an aura we can have on. You can have any one of these free. I generally go in Devotion Aura, which is just a kind of an aura that buffs you in the group. So left here is our top priority, Divine Hammer. It's on a 1-minute cooldown and does use free holy power. So I know I said that you use Final Verdict for your holy power. This is on a 1-minute cooldown, so you're not going to be using it all the time. It's just going to be used now and again as top priority. Divine Hammers spin around you, as you can see, striking nearby enemies for holy damage every few seconds. While active, each holy power that you spend increases the duration of them, of those holy hammers. Holy hammers? Divine hammers, even. After that, again, on cooldown, use your Execution Sentence. A hammer slowly falls from the sky. You can see it up here, look. And the really cool thing about this is that once it finally hits the target, they're actually going to suffer 20% of the damage taken from your abilities as holy damage during that time. So while that hammer is falling, if I do 100k damage in between it falling and hitting the target, I've done 100k damage in between that time period, it will hit the target on the head, and then it will deal 20% of that damage, which would be 20,000. If by the time, in between it falling and eventually hitting the target, I've done 1 million damage, it will then do 200,000 damage once it finally hits the target. Use that one on cooldown as well. We then have Wake of Ashes, and you will notice here that it is on our action bar twice, here and here. If I go into the talents quickly, what you'll see here is that Light's Guidance, which is our first hero talent, gives us the ability Hammer of Light. So Wake of Ashes is replaced with Hammer of Light for 12 seconds after it is cast. So whenever you use Wake of Ashes, it's then going to turn into Hammer of Light. So where it gets confusing is that we're only going to use Wake of Ashes down here in the priority list. But once it turns to Hammer of Light, we're going to use it up here in the priority list. I'm going to put this rotation all together and show you it in action once we go through it. So use your Divine Hammer on cooldown, use your Execution Sentence on cooldown. When Wake of Ashes has turned into Hammer of Light, use it. Okay, it hasn't right now, so we're going to go on to the next one, Final Verdict. We're using Final Verdict here, remember, to spend our Holy Power. We're only using it here if we are maxed out on Holy Power, which is 5 out of 5. And as you can see here, we now are, so we're going to use it. After that, we're going to use Blade of Justice. This is going to generate 1 Holy Power, but it's also going to do something else to your target. If we look down here at my target, can you see we have Expurgation? Suffering radiant damage, holy damage taken from me is increased. You also want to use this when you go into the fight. So as soon as you go into the fight, use Blade of Justice, basically so that all of your damage is increased by 5%, and then use it at this point in the priority list just to keep that debuff up. So if it's falling off, keep it back up, okay? Keep that Expurgation up on the target. Then we're going to use Wake of Ashes as our next priority. If we went down the priority list now, it'd be Divine Hammer, Execution Sentence. I haven't got Hammer of Light. I haven't got 5 Holy Power. I'm going to keep up my debuff with Blade of Justice. Oh, okay, and now I can use Final Verdict because I was maxed out on Holy Power. The debuff is running off, so I'm going to use Blade of Justice. And then I'm going to use Wake of Ashes. It's now turned into Hammer of Light, so I'm going to use that as my top priority. Again, this is going to be falling off, so I'm going to use it. And you kind of just go down the priority list from left to right like that. After that, we have Divine Toll. Instantly casts Judgment on up to 5 targets, and Divine Toll's Judgment deals increased damage. What is Judgment? Well, that's this spell down here. So when I use Divine Toll, it's going to cast it on our nearby enemies. We do have Judgment down here, judges the target, dealing damage, and causing them to take increased damage from your next Holy Power ability. So basically, when we use Divine Toll or Judgment, our next Holy Power ability, like Final Verdict, will deal increased damage to the target. After that, we have Blade of Justice again, and then Hammer of Wrath. We're basically using Blade of Justice and Hammer of Wrath here if we've got nothing else to press. So let's put it all together. We're going to use Divine Hammer, we're going to use Execution Sentence, we haven't got 5 Holy Power, we're going to use Blade of Justice to keep that debuff up, we're going to use Wake of Ashes, it's now Hammer of Light, so we're going to use that. We're then going to go down and we're going to use our Judgment. Final Verdict has then got a proc, so this is when we're going to use that as well, anytime it procs. And you're just working your way down the rotation list like that. And that's pretty much all you do. So again, I'm using this one here. I'm not using this because it's not got 5 Holy Power. I'm keeping up the debuff. I'm using Divine Toll. Now we've got 5 Holy Power, so I'm using Final Verdict. I'm going to be using Wake of Ashes here. Then it's Hammer of Light. Don't forget to use your cooldowns. Keep up your debuff. Use any procs you get from Final Verdict. And then when you have Final Verdict here, so you're only using it here if you're maxed on Holy Power, use it down here if you have 3 or more Holy Power, okay? And then it's going to be Judgment, and then Blade of Justice and Hammer of Wrath if you've got nothing else to press. That is literally the rotation. If you're in an AoE environment, rather than using Final Verdict, you use Divine Storm, which basically just does the same thing but to multiple targets. And that is the only difference in Mythic Plus and single target. Now that we've gone through the rotation, let's just have a look at the talents, some of the important ones we're using. So obviously we are going Templar. I've explained the main talent here, the Keystone talent with Hammer of Light. There's also Light's Deliverance. You gain a stack of Light's Deliverance when you call down an Empyrean Hammer. Empyrean Hammers will be called down when you use Hammer of Light and through some of these other talents here passively. While Wake of Ashes and Hammer of Light are unavailable, so when they're on cooldown, you consume 50 stacks of Light's Deliverance, empowering yourself to cast Hammer of Light an additional time for free. So whenever you see it proc, just use it. And that again is the one that Wake of Ashes turns into. Cool. Now that we've looked at the hero talents, let's look through the important talents that underpin the rotation here. The ones I'm going to show you are already happening passively in the rotation you're doing. This is more of an understanding on why we're using things. When you use Judgment, it empowers your next single target Holy Power to automatically activate Divine Storm as well, so that's actually really cool. This is a really interesting one. Guided prayer. When your health is brought below 25% health, you automatically cast a free word of glory at 60% effectiveness. That is basically a holy power ability, but for healing, that is a single target heal. So it can happen once a minute. If your health goes low, you will heal yourself automatically for free at 60% effectiveness of that spell. One thing you may notice in your talents is this one here, Crusade. You'll notice, however, it says at the top, replaced by Radiant Glory. Down here, Radiant Glory. Avenging Wrath, which is normally a cooldown you have, is replaced. Wake of Ashes activates Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds. So rather than manually activating that cooldown, whenever we use our Wake of Ashes, it will actually be activating the cooldown for 8 seconds for us automatically. Each holy power spent has a chance to actually activate that cooldown as well for 4 seconds. So if you are looking at that thinking, where the hell is my cooldown? It's kind of tied in passively now into this talent. There is actually multi-target damage going on as well in a lot of these spells, like Seething Flames here. Wake of Ashes deals significantly reduced damage to secondary targets, but now causes you to lash out 2 extra times for more damage. Your auto attacks have a chance to reset the cooldown of your Blade of Justice, which is the one that looks like this. And then this is really interesting, especially in Mythic Plus. Divine Storm, which is your AoE Holy Power Spender, deals increased damage, okay, cool, but when it hits an enemy that is affected by your expurgation, it will spread that effect to up to 4 targets hit. Basically, when we use Blade of Justice, it puts expurgation onto our target, remember? And then when we use Divine Storm, it will actually put that onto your nearby targets that were hit. So that's a really great way of actually getting that expurgation round to all of your targets if you are in an AoE environment. If we now go over, we're just waiting to come out of combat. If we now go over to the Mythic Plus build, you can see here, not much of it is really changing. The main bits we're getting is down here. We have Searing Light, High Lord's Judgment and Radiant Damage abilities have a chance to call down an explosion of Holy Fire. This is happening passively again to all nearby enemies, leaving Consecration in its wake. So Consecration is basically when you use some of your abilities, so it's the light, kind of the holy light that you see on the floor, and it will hurt enemies that stand in it. Crusader Strike and Judgment hit an additional 4 targets, but reduced damage. So with your Judgment, it will now hit more targets in Mythic Plus. And Crusading Strikes have a chance to make your next Divine Storm free and do additional damage. So it's empowering Divine Storm. That's the only main changes we're making in the Mythic Plus and single target talents, but the actual rotation is staying exactly the same, apart from you use Divine Storm instead for your Holy Power Spender with multiple targets. Before we finish this off, let's have a quick look at the other abilities and utilities that we have available to us. There's a lot of blessings I'd advise you to look through. Blessing of Protection, which you can use on anyone. Don't use it on tanks, by the way, because they will lose all their threats. They're actually going to get annoyed at you rather than love you for protecting them. There's Blessing of Freedom, Sacrifice. There's Crusader Aura, which actually will increase mounted speed, which is really useful. You've got Divine Shield, which is a really great defensive cooldown. Divine Steed is a great movement ability in combat. Lay on Hands, an insane defensive there. And I just advise you to read through these in your own time. I don't want to overwhelm you, but these are the important ones. Hand of Reckoning is your interrupt. If you are a beginner, interrupting the enemy spellcasting is really, really important. Hammer of Justice can stun them. Sorry, not Hand of Reckoning, that's your taunt. Ignore me. I just realised Rebuke, is your interrupt. Not Hand of Reckoning. You won't be using Hand of Reckoning as a DPS. Rebuke is your interrupt. Completely ignore me. And that is the one you'll be using to interrupt your enemies. And that is pretty much most of your utilities. There's Divine Protection as well, reducing all damage you take. And that's a pretty good one that I love using as well. And then, as I said, if you want my UI or anything like this, then do join Patreon. It massively helps support the channel. And I do have some extra resources for you guys on there as well. Don't forget to subscribe. I do actually do quite a lot on this channel. As you can see, I do every single spec. I've done War Within PvP guides. You can see here, Season 1, 65 videos. I do every single spec, every single season. Pre-patch guides I do as well. I do WoW Classic and Cataclysm as well. I'll be doing Mists of Pandaria if you play that. I do also run the Javi Herobrine channel. If you're also into other games, this is my Minecraft channel. Do check this one out. It's all for modded Minecraft, and I teach everyone how to play mods in there. And I do also have my new channel, Javi How To, which I've repurposed into a variety gaming guides channel. So do check out this one if you're looking for all of the latest releasing games and how to get guides on those.